I am a ship salvager, but today I chose violence. When I logged into Star Citizen, I was immediately offered the priority mission called Hunt the Polaris. And whether it was out of bravery or sheer stupidity, I decided to accept. The situation? A group of knuckleheads had commandeered a Polaris to use for their own purposes. The mission? To neutralize said Polaris so that it couldn't be used for any nefarious reasons. Now you're probably wondering why I'm taking my Vulture into such a dangerous situation like this. And well, to be honest, I really wanted to scrape that Polaris. This was my first time doing this mission, so I didn't really know what to expect. I had also never fought a Polaris before, so I didn't know if I was going to come out of this unscathed or not. When I joined the fight, there was only a few other allied forces helping me, and I didn't know whether they were NPCs or actual players. In reality, I don't think I was contributing very much to this fight, other than maybe keeping the enemy's shields down, but I did the best I could with what I had. I also needed to make sure that I stayed out of the range of the enemy's PDC guns. So I tried to position myself around the back side of the Polaris, which seemed to be the best spot to help mitigate the most amount of fire. Eventually, enemy reinforcements arrived, so we were forced to shift our focus onto them.
Where the hell are you going?
Once again, I wasn't able to really contribute that much, but I did manage to shoot the wings off of the Scorpius, so I wasn't completely useless. As for the retaliators, however, I was able to act as little more than a distraction for them. At one point, I began taking on heavy fire from an enemy hammerhead. For a few seconds, I thought about engaging it like a knucklehead, but then I realized that my shields were completely down and my hull was almost completely destroyed. So instead, I made a strategic retreat. Hoping I still had enough time left, I flew to Everest Harbor for repairs. I managed to re-enter the battle just as all of our allied fighters were converging on the Polaris to make one final push to victory. I decided to hang back and watch because I didn't want to take any unnecessary risks this time around. The battle raged on for what seemed an eternity. Bullets and missiles flying in every direction. Ships orbiting each other with finesse and precision. It was truly a sight to behold, and I was enjoying every second of it. And finally, at last, our allies succeeded on taking down this beast of a gunship. And then that's where I made my move.
Don't worry. The frontier fighters.
Of course, I made sure to notify any of the players there that I wanted to scrape this puppy. Some of the people in chat thought I was crazy, but I didn't care. I was gonna do it anyway. And after a little bit of lining up with my ship, I got to work. Whoop, hang on, ladies, we're being interdicted. Such wonderful timing. I'm gonna burn right past them at full speed. We don't want to give them any time to react. They're not really moving though, so they must be AI. Well, that was a thing that happened. After dropping off my cargo and arriving back at the mining base where the Polaris was, something unfortunate happened. I was no longer able to find where the Polaris was at. After the better half of an hour, after several pings and flying around the area trying to locate it, there was no ship. And unfortunately, I was running out of time for a recording, so I needed to move on. My only guess is that it despawned while I went to unload my cargo. Now, this excursion wasn't a complete loss. I did come out with quite a bit of cargo. Of course, that also meant that my Vulture was no longer adequate enough to carry all the cargo that I did grab. So I decided to call up my trusty dusty ship Connie and her sidekick Atlas. However, Atlas is a new addition to my collection, and I had only used it once before, so getting it to work properly was kind of clunky. Regardless of my inexperience with the Atlas, it still saved me quite a bit of time having to move all of these smaller boxes, even if they didn't go where I wanted to place them. And after everything was loaded up and ready to go, it was time to take off and make some money. This time around, I wanted to go somewhere different than Microtech, so I decided to head towards Crusader to sell my cargo. And Crusader's capital city, Orison, has the best payout for RMC for safe delivery. When I arrived at Orison, it was during its night cycle, which for me personally is my favorite time to visit. In order to reach the Orison Trade District, you have to ride an Airbus to the Cloudview Center. And then you have to make your way to the building with this globe symbol on it in front. Even though 36 SU of RMC was only half of what I was hoping for, we still made 370,000 credits, which, for about an hour and a half's worth of work, I think that was pretty good. And this right here is why Orison is my favorite place to visit at night. And with that, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I apologize for not being able to get more off of that Polaris, but you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you want it to. Regardless of the payout, I actually had a really fun time recording this video. The experience was awesome just watching the battles in space. And I hope to make more of these kind of videos in the future, and if you guys want to keep following me, that would be awesome. So I thank you, and good night.